CBCP, the bishops of the Philippines made a decision to establish the Office for the Promotion of the New Evangelization. And the Office for the Promotion of the New Evangelization is a reflection of the new dicastery established by Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, which is the Pontifical Council for the New Evangelization, the president of which is Archbishop Fisichella. In fact, last year, there was an international catechetical congress in Rome. I took the liberty to attend. I asked permission from Cardinal Chito to attend. And it was worthwhile. And I am told that the catechetical congress in Rome will happen once every 2 years. Not this year, but hopefully next year. And that is one thing that I am suggesting, fathers, that maybe if next year would be opportune for us, our group of catechetical directors can take the journey to Rome and attend the International Catechetical Congress. We can do some work in terms of getting the visa, because it will be better for us to get the visa together in the Italian embassy. And we might be getting a good rate. And hopefully by next year, Colegio Filipino will be finished because they are fixing the whole Colegio. In fact, I am told they have to spend 1 million euros just to upgrade the facilities, because the facilities are very old. So, isa po yun sa gusto kong pag-isipan ninyo, ano? Kasi last year, I just tested the waters to find out would it be worthwhile. Ang sa akin, it was really worthwhile because the people who attended were catechetical directors and coordinators of dioceses all over the world. And it will be a very good exposure for our group to see the international scene, so that the international or the macro situation can help us. Why am I saying this? Because when the bishops made a decision to establish the Office for the Promotion for the New Evangelization, they decided that it be intercommissioned. And I am told that 3 commissions are laity, 2 is family, and 3 is the Commission on Catechesis and Catholic Education. But at the end of the discussion, the temporary home of the Office for the Promotion of the New Evangelization is our commission, which is the Commission on Catechesis and Catholic Education. In other words, we are the department, if you want to call it, or the office in charge of the new evangelization because of our work, for obvious reasons. In other words, we are in charge of education in the faith in our respective dioceses. That is a big challenge for us. That is why I'd like to begin my talk this afternoon from that angle. That in our respective dioceses, the office of the catechetical ministry or the catechetical department of the diocese is the office assigned to do the promotion for the new evangelization. In other words, the catechetical director and his coordinator, whether a sister or a lay, would be the right persons in charge of promoting the new evangelization. In other words, we go around, we promote it, but first, we must know it. And this whole afternoon, hopefully up to around mga 5:30, we'll have a break at 4 o'clock, and then an interchange, is our, well, not only input, but question and answer as well as our planning. Because I need your input. I need your input insofar as where should we go as catechetical directors. Because as catechetical directors, our work is so immense. And I know that a good number of you, if not all of you, are also parish priests and pastors. Thus, you are multi-level priests in your respective dioceses. How then can we effectively promote the evangelization in light of the challenges of Pope Francis? Because the Pope Francis has given us the outline, initial outline of the new evangelization in his latest encyclical letter, Evangelii Gaudium. And that I will discuss with you this afternoon. However, while I give you the big ideas of the new evangelization in light of Evangelii Gaudium, I am requesting that during our break, kindly discuss among yourselves and we can draw out a workshop. What are the implications to catechetical ministry? Because I will provide for you some implications from my own reflection, but please take note, my reflection is limited to where I am serving. What is important is that as catechetical directors, we would be the best agents because of the varied and diverse experiences and ministries that we find ourselves in. Are we clear? So, ang gawin ko po sa inyo ngayon, 1 hour up to 4 o'clock, is to discuss the new evangelization. Let me begin. What I did was to discuss the Second Vatican Council first. The starting point of the discussion of the new evangelization is the Second Vatican Council for obvious reasons. For obvious reasons because it was the Second Vatican Council from 1962 to 1965 that gave us a good understanding of what renewal is all about. What is renewal? When Pope Pius XII died in 1958, the cardinals chose a replacement in the person of Angelo Cardinal Roncalli, who chose the name John the 23rd. Significant is because they felt that a good number of historians would say that he was only a transitionary pope. But in 1959, he astounded the world because in 1959, at St. Paul's outside the walls, John the 23rd decided to call forth an ecumenical council. The two agenda of the ecumenical council proposed by John the 23rd in 1959 are, first is renewal, thus the word aggiornamento, and second is ecumenism, or building bridges with separated brothers and sisters. 3 years of preparation happened from 59 to 1962. And in 1962, significant is the Holy Father died and they did an election. It was Cardinal Montini of Milan who was elected, who chose the name Pope Paul VI. Now, let me begin. Right? Stop. This is the opening of the Second Vatican Council in 1962, and I read the quotation. Significant are these words from Pope John the 23rd. Under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we intend in this meeting, meaning Vatican II, to seek the most effective ways of renewing ourselves and of becoming increasingly more faithful witnesses of the gospel of Christ. From the renewed serene and tranquil adherence to all the teaching of the Church in its entirety and preciseness, as it still shines forth in the acts of the Council of Trent and First Vatican Council, the Christian, Catholic, and Apostolic spirit of the whole world expects a step forward toward a doctrinal penetration and a formation of consciences in faithful and perfect conformity to the authentic doctrine, which, however, should be studied and expounded through methods of research and through the literary forms of modern thought. Please take note. What are the phrases significant here in the speech of John the 23rd? Contemporary world must be studied through methods of research and through the literary forms of modern thought. Research and literary forms of modern thought. What does that mean? We need to do an in-depth study of the contemporary world. And in studying the contemporary world, we also need to understand how people think today. That was in 1962. Now, significant. In 1962, the church is already late 30 or 40 years in 1962 because postmodernism started in the 1950s. Before 1950 was the modern world. Thus, Gaudium et Spes, which is the pastoral constitution of the church in the modern world, should have been entitled Pastoral Constitution of the Church in the postmodern world. The modern world is already passé by technicalities in the 1960s. Significant, therefore, is this. How then do people today think? And how do people today, I'm talking about 1962, think about the world in their context? Next. Now, this is the most significant part of the speech of John the 23rd. The substance. The substance of the ancient doctrine of the deposit of faith is one thing, and the way in which it is presented is another. Significant. Substance is one thing, the way in which it is presented is another. Literary forms of modern thought continuously change. Therefore, doctrine, moral, worship change, do not change, but the way we capsulize them, the way we express them would be different. Next. And it is the latter that must be taken into great consideration with patience if necessary. Father, sarap ko lang muna ha, kasi ano eh. Something wrong with the power. Okay, next. 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 When John the 23rd died in 1962, as I said, he was succeeded by Pope Paul VI. And Pope Paul VI decided to continue Vatican II. Expanded the objectives from 2, it became 4. What are the 4 objectives of Vatican II? Based on this opening address of Pope Paul VI in the opening Mass of the Council in 1962. First, that the Church may have a more thorough understanding of her nature. What is the Church? What is the model of the Church? Number 2 is renewal. The second objective of the Council is renewal. The word that was used is aggiornamento, keeping the Church up to date. And how do we keep the Church up to date? We keep the Church up to date by means of renewing our love for the Word of God, and second is our renewal of the liturgy. So significant is that later on, Vatican II issued 2 important constitutions. One is Dei Verbum, which is on the divine revelation, and on the liturgy, which is Sacrosanctum Concilium. In other words, the 4 constitutions of Vatican II are simply expressive of addressing the 4 objectives of Vatican II. Third is the ecumenical agenda. Once again, Pope Paul VI picked up the agenda of Angelo Cardinal Roncalli, which is to build bridges with our separated brothers and sisters and to build bridges with people of other faiths. Significant is because of the experience of John the 23rd when he was assigned in Bulgaria and in Turkey, when he was papal nuncio to these places. That opened his mind to the reality that we share a common faith as Christians. Number 4 is that we need to build bridges with the world of politics, with the world of economy, with the world of culture, and with the world of the community of nations. This 4th objective was responded to by important documents, namely Gaudium et Spes, Inter Verifica, which is on social communications, and Dignitatis Humanae, which is on religious freedom. 4 important objectives of the Council. I'm giving importance to this, fathers, because this will provide for us the directions of where catechetical ministry should go in light of the new evangelization. Because later on, you will discover that in Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis continuously goes back to Vatican II and still continues to call attention to the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. Next. Now, this is a general situation, catechesis and Catholic education. I put the 2 together because this is the commission both of catechesis and education. Next. 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 These are documents. We read catechesis in the following documents. There is no document, the 16 documents of Vatican II. There is no specific document on catechesis in Vatican II. But catechesis is found in the following documents. First, it is found in Christus Dominus, which is on the bishops, because the bishop is the catechist par excellence in his diocese. Second, in the document Ad Gentes, that's another document in which we read something about catechesis, which is on the missionary activity of the church. Number 3, it is also found in Christian education, Gravissimum Educationis. Number 4, it is found in Inter Verifica on social communications. Next, it is found once again in the Code of Canon Law of 1983. Remember, when John the 23rd started Vatican II, there were also 2 agenda in the talk of John the 23rd, he did not only want to call for an ecumenical council, he also wanted to call for a Roman synod, and number 3, he wanted to reform the Code of 1917. That did not happen under John the 23rd and Pope Paul VI. The reform of the Code of Canon Law happened under the pontificacy of John Paul II. So we can read once again something about catechesis in the Code of Canon Law. Now, when I was reading the history of catechesis, there is really no document. Why? I discovered that in the council floor, there was a bishop who said, let us not write a catechism. Rather, he proposed to Pope Paul VI and to the council fathers, all 2,500 of them, he said, let us simply write a catechetical directory. That is why the first product on terms of catechesis was not a catechism but a directory, knowing that each country should have, based on the directory, formulate its own catechism. Why? Because there was an existing catechism then. For the English-speaking countries, it was known as the Baltimore Catechism. Alright? Just history. So, under the term of Pope Paul VI, there was the General Directory for Catechesis. Later on, that was revised. John Paul wrote the General Catechetical Directory. But on the second year of St. John Paul II, second year pa lang niya, he convened the Synod of Bishops. And the topic of his second year was catechesis in our time, that produced the document Catechesi Tradendae. Later on, you discover that John Paul II wrote his Opus Magnum, his masterpiece. This Saint John